Thank you, Chairman Carr. Good morning. Appreciate you being here. I did want to follow up on some of the DEI questions that Congressman Bishop had raised. You were sworn in on, was it January 20th? You were sworn in?
Designated.
Designated, okay. Did you begin working at the FCC on that date?
I've been there actually, believe it or not, since 2012, straight, with no break.
Okay. And then on February 27th, you sent a letter to Verizon, essentially accusing them of invidious discrimination. Do you recall doing that?
Yes.
Okay. And then you got a letter back from Verizon dated May 15 from their EVP, Chief Legal Officer, that didn't acknowledge or admit invidious discrimination, but said that it had made some changes to its DEI policies. You recall that?
Yes.
Okay. And that was May 15th. Then May 16th, you issued a press release with respect to the Verizon Frontier merger. You recall that? All right. That's a yes for the record?
Yes.
Okay. And then the memorandum order and opinion was released that same day. And that day was when the FCC approved the request with respect to the merger that I guess had been held up in part during your determination with respect to the DEI issue. Is that right?
Well, Congressman, with respect to this transaction and all transactions, we run a normal course process at the FCC, and we specifically have rules on our books that deal with EEO, that deal with non-discrimination.
I'll come to that in a second, but the day after you received the letter back from Verizon, the FCC approved the request, right?
Correct.
All right. And in the order that you issued, well, first of all, in the letter that you sent, you didn't, well, let me ask it this way. Before you sent that letter, essentially alleging invidious discrimination committed by Verizon, had the FCC done any kind of investigation with respect to any complaints of discrimination at Verizon that led you to write that letter?
Well, as a general matter, two things have taken place.
Not a general matter. Did you review any particular allegations against Verizon before you sent this letter?
Again, Congressman, there's two things that we're doing. One is when I started as chair, what we did is we ended the FCC's own promotion.
No. I'm asking if there's a factual basis for the letter that you sent. And if so, was it investigations with respect to complaints against Verizon? Were there any complaints that you reviewed that had been filed with the EEOC alleging discrimination against Verizon? Were there any court cases that you reviewed alleging discrimination against Verizon? Well, any of those?
One of the things that we've been very clear about,
sir, I only have 5 minutes. Did you do any of that before you issued this letter?
What I'm saying is we have a standard of non-discrimination.
That's not what I'm asking.
And what I've made clear to everybody,
I'm asking if you had a factual basis for, and the reason I'm asking is because when you allege invidious discrimination, and the cases you cite as Supreme Court cases, say that you have to have a factual basis to support the claim. And they're very specific about what those factual bases are. For example, suspect classification. Did you have anybody alleging racial discrimination or religious discrimination that you reviewed those matters before you issued this letter?
Those limitations that you're speaking about apply in the context of those types of cases, but that's not the rule that applies at the FCC. The FCC
I'm just
has
asking
non-discrimination rules on our books.
asking if you reviewed anything before you sent this letter.
If you look at the letter,
I did.
From Verizon, it walks through a number of practices, including practices that I was aware of when I sent that letter.
But none of those actually admit, as you just acknowledged, invidious discrimination, right? In fact, none of them actually deal with any of the suspect classifications, like race, for example. That would be the basis for a finding of invidious discrimination. Let me move on. Real quick, in the order that you issued in paragraph 33, which is the only one that deals with the DEI issue, it references the letter that you got back from Verizon, but it doesn't state anything about any kind of factual basis that the FCC developed to support the original allegation that you made of invidious discrimination. If you'd had any evidence to that effect, would you have put it in the order?
Well, Congressman, again, I think what you're raising are factual points that are
Okay.
relevant
Well,
to like a
it-
1983
Will
action.
you at
in
least
court, but
acknowledge-
Let the gentleman answer.
Well, if I get additional
but
time, I'd be
you're-
happy to.
You're asking us if we
But-
followed
Let him answer
a
it, and then we're
process
moving
and a
on.
standard that doesn't apply in the context of the FCC. We follow the FCC's processes. The FCC has non-discrimination rules on the books.
that
The
are not based on,
Communications Act
you can
talks
make
about
you can make an
non-discrimination.
allegation of invidious discrimination without having any facts to support the claim
Yes.
under the FCC. That is not true.
Chair
Okay, wait a minute.
recognizes the gentleman from Missouri, Mr. Alford, for his questions.